Wow, welcome to the program, and what a day. National Signing Day in the rearview mirror, and a pretty special show, I will have to say, as we broke down Tennessee's class. We're going to continue to do so. We had Jamal Wallace, who was a quote machine. I want to cover that guy. He was fantastic. Hit like and subscribe with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, and we've got a lot to get to on the program today. We didn't talk about underrated signees, as you might expect. The day of, you're going to talk about the 4 and the 5-star guys and the Boo Carters of the world and maybe the Jordan Seatons of the world. We're also going to talk about the rest of the SEC as, man, one team that Tennessee considers a rival for now. We'll see what happens with the new SEC alignment, but it's just blowing up. Is a disaster. And I'm going to give you a little tip as to who might be their next head coach. And also today's tough question. I want to ask you this. Is Tennessee's class good enough, or great? That is on our YouTube page right now, so you can vote right there. Today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason of AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Over 40 years of experience right there with AndyMasonRealEstate.com. And Andy will take care of you. Just go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best prices and best service in the biz. So let me start with that before we get to some underrated Vol signees. Also on the program today, Ron Slay will join us, the former basketball Vol. Love talking to him. And Josh Ward of the Sports Animal. But before we get to some of those underrated signees, I was asked this on a Nashville station this morning, and that was, is this class good or good enough? And then I threw in great for the optimists among us. What are your thoughts, Caleb?
I'm on the good enough train. And the reason I'm on the good enough train is I think with the age of the NIL and the transfer portal, college football is entering an era that is actually more similar to college basketball, where maybe a little bit less of recruiting class, but a little bit more of experience can be the most valuable thing you have. And just to break, and as we know, Tennessee, Josh Heupel is very big on trying to get the older guys to return. That's how they're applying the NIL money very clearly. And it's kind of a philosophy of, Dave, you see this in college basketball all the time. The teams that were winning national titles, they're not the one and done teams. They're the teams with solid, good recruiting classes, maybe 5-star here or there, a couple 4-stars, but they've been in the program for what, maybe 2-3 years at that point, and they know how to play together. And I think college football is kind of entering that era. Now, look, you're not going to get one and dones in college football, but I do think you could get one and dones in terms of depth. So I think Josh Heupel is making the making the gamble that, I'd rather apply more of my focus on trying to make sure guys stay in the program than guys that are valuable stay in the program than try to sign these top classes every year, because that way I will have the benefit of experience over some of these other SEC teams going forward.
No, we're going to get to that. That was what my column. So I sat down to write my column yesterday about signing day, and I just couldn't leave names like Cooper Mays and Keenan Pili out of it. I couldn't leave names like Omari Thomas out of it, or John Campbell Jr. So I think that was a real factor in what Tennessee had to spend in NIL money. And I'll tell you what, I'd rather have one of those guys than any 5 signees, because I know that they are proven. And Tennessee got 4 key ones back and may get another one back in Brew McCoy. I also want to pass along some news of Tennessee football practice at some point. Remind me of this, Caleb, because there are 2 guys that are standing out, according to Jacob Warren and the Ball Report, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. That's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Life is better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. ccteyes.com. The story is going up here momentarily before we get to those underrated signees. But Caleb, let me ask you this question. If you had to pick 2 of the midterm enrollees that have wowed the seniors, Jacob Warren being one, and we'll visit with Cooper Mays on the Ball Report later today, who would they be? Do you have any thoughts on the midterm?
My guesses would have been, because they were there on Saturday, Mike Matthews and Boo Carter. because those are the two I was highest on.
Bam, you nailed it. He has already seen enough to believe they're going to be really good players. So let's go ahead and dig into the underrated signees. And I want to get your thoughts as much as anything on the message board. Hit like and subscribe for me. Hit that bell, turn the notifications on. Greatly appreciate that. But let's talk about some of the underrated signees and who are some guys that you have questions about. And people say I look good. I think it's just better lighting and maybe a little hair product. No, it's just water. All right, Caleb. So who are the underrated signees in your mind? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, because I love him, because he came on the show and he was incredibly quotable. And I think I've got like 3 columns I can write off of him. It's Jamal Wallace for me, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I thought he was just fantastic. And this guy was a 190-pound safety in 2019. And now he is a defensive lineman. But who would you tab as some of the underrated signees that we didn't dive into on the first National Signing Day?
Yeah, I got no debate with you on Jamal Wallace. He was so, he blew me away with his intelligence when he came on the show, with his just deep understanding of football and you're right. The way he's developed, he's got skills that he has a unique skill set as a guy who played a skill position like safety or something like that. And now he's playing on the line. I mean, he's just a very, very smart player. I'm very high on him too. Know a lot more about him than I did last weekend, funny enough. So he was right to call us out. But I'm going to stick with one. There's a guy who I think actually has a lot of real talent, but he's a bit of a project, so you won't see him next year. And he's another offensive lineman, and he's the one we didn't talk about yesterday. That's Jesse Perry. And the reason he's only a 3-star largely is because he's only 278 pounds. So the question is, can he maintain what he does if he gets up to 300, which you expect him to get into the 300 range? But if he does, Dave, I mean, the guy is 6'7", and he does have, he's 6'5". I'm sorry. He's 6'5", and he does have pretty good feet. He's pretty agile. So if he maintains that once he puts on the 20 pounds, he could be on the level of the other guys. And I talk about locations all the time. Y'all know how I am with Ensworth and Lipscomb at Nashville. Sorry to you guys who graduated from those schools, but Murfreesboro is the opposite. Murfreesboro consistently puts out underrated talent.
By the way, guys, so just so that you know, I mean, there are other people in this business that have agendas. Caleb is so agenda-free that he made someone at Lipscomb so mad that they blew up our Twitter and sent me an email, said they'll never be listening again because they went to Lipscomb. The simple fact is there have been a lot of disappointments out of Lipscomb, and maybe we'll get him back one day. I'll take a guy named Jordan Burns, and I'm going with 3 stars or less. I mean, everybody has 3 stars if you're a Division I player or if you're a Power 5, Power 4 player, wherever we are. But Jordan Burns at linebacker, because he played in Atlanta, I think that's very significant. He's already 6'2" 220 pounds. And again, playing in that area, he may be middle of the pack by Atlanta or Georgia standards, but that can be pretty good when you get in the college level. So that would be one that I would pick as a guy that may have a bigger impact as an underrated signee at this point.
Notice 2 guys we picked, Dave, because you talked about this yesterday. Underrated guys from the Atlanta area that aren't offered by Georgia. When they come to Tennessee, they fall in love with Tennessee. Also, players in the middle to East Tennessee area that aren't as highly valued, when they go to Tennessee, they go because they love it. And I mean, the Knoxville kids naturally do that, like Cooper Mays, and Jacob Warren, they loved playing for Tennessee. They'd go all out for Tennessee. But a lot of the Murfreesboro kids are the same way. So we're talking about 2 guys that they're at Tennessee because they're going to be super loyal to Tennessee for different reasons, but they want to be at Tennessee. And I think that's going to stand out a lot. And so I'm with you with Jordan Burns. The only reason I kind of held off Jordan Burns a little bit was he was a 4-star on Rivals, I believe, or was it 247? Not the composite. You're right. He is a 3-star on the composite. So I don't know if that qualifies as underrated or not, but I feel you on that. Another one I'm sticking on the offensive line is, Gage Ginther, the guy that came out of Colorado. I think him, and there's a the kid from Missouri, I'm totally drawing a blank right now on the kid that Kellen Lindstrom, the edge rusher from Missouri. Both of those, I think, were actually. I think where they play has held them back a little bit because I think there's just not a lot of recruiting scouts and services that are in Missouri and Colorado, and I think that actually has you covered it, Dave, right? Where that has a huge impact on ratings where a lot of the analysts are, and there are not a lot of them in Colorado and Missouri. So if you could just even get noticed playing in those areas, there's some real potential there.
Okay, I'm going to stretch a little bit for another underappreciated guy because I think he was overshadowed by a guy at his same position. So this is not my 3-star rule, okay? But we all want to talk about Mike Matthews at receiver because he's a 5-star. But Braylon Staley is a 4-star and could be a fantastic wide receiver for Tennessee. So I'm kind of bending the rules a little bit on that. He's like the 3rd highest player that Tennessee's gotten. So I realize I'm reaching, but I feel like Staley's been a little bit overshadowed by Matthews. So the wide receiver haul could have been deeper for Tennessee and nobody would have complained. But the 2 they got are right up at the top and already 6 foot or above guys. Matthews making an impact, but I wouldn't dismiss Staley just because Matthews is so highly rated.
Well, yeah, I actually said yesterday, based on need, I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. Peyton Lewis, is the most likely like future offensive playmaker in this class to play early. I didn't include future for Mike Matthews because I think Mike Matthews is going to start next year, if I'm being honest. But in terms of future down the line, I had Peyton Lewis number 1. However, in terms of raw skill set, I thought Braylon Staley topped them all. I just didn't see how he got into the roster next year. But, and we just saw this on the message board, it is very possible that he becomes that possession receiver opposite what Mike Matthews or Brew McCoy is going to be. And so it's not out of the realm for him to get onto the field next year. It's just Dante Thornton is there. Brew McCoy might come back. Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod both do have some experience. So because of that, because Braylon Staley's not going to step in and be the receiver that you talk about all the time, Dave, that dictates coverage. He's not going to be that for you next year. But and then the other spots are so locked in that it's hard for me to see him playing. But he could get on there for just raw skill. So he fits your mold if he starts next year. And that's not crazy to think that he might start next year.
People commenting on my hair. I literally took water out of the sink and did this. That's all I did. Give me some of those underappreciated ball signees on the message board, and we'll dig into them and touch base with them. Ron Slay and Josh Ward coming up later. Now, Mead Drinker brings up a point here that I want to get to. Will we see Nimrod or Webb hit the portal after spring if Matthews and Staley overperform? I don't think so for a couple of reasons. I think those guys both know the offense. I think they're Ramel Keaton types in that there's a little bit lower of a ceiling than with Matthews and Staley. But I do think they know the offense and they're going to be ready to go next year. And I certainly wouldn't want to hand over this offense to a couple of freshmen that would be key contributors at the wide receiver position. I think one or both will play. But Tennessee also, remember this, they are loyal to their guys, sometimes to a fault, Joe Milton. But they are also a team that likes to play their 3 receivers and settle in on them. So I don't think they're going to settle on a new duo when Nimrod and Webb are probably the guys right now. At least that's my thinking. You?
Well, if Staley overperforms, they might hit the portal, largely because again, Staley could take that role. Now Matthews is irrelevant.
Nathan Leacock, and me pointed out we forgot about Nathan Leacock.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good point about Nathan Leacock. That's a good question. I mean, but Staley's performance could have an impact on them. None of those guys are going. Matthews is a different story. None of those guys are expected to do what Matthews is expected to do. Mike Matthews is expected to replace Brew McCoy. Is that fair to say, Dave? He's expected to be the next Brew McCoy.
Yep. Or the next Cedric Tillman was supposed to be, and what Brew McCoy ended up being. No doubt about it. I mean, he's that guy.
None of those other guys can be that.
Either Staley or Matthews is supposed to be that guy. I think it's going to be Matthews. but we'll see. Guys evolve. Portions of the program brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. HeraldGRP.com. Your workplace and your children's school should be safe, and we've all seen the tragedies in our country. So just go to your work administrator or school administrator and say, you've got to reach out to Herald Group Security Solutions. Herald Group Security Solutions means a lot. Support our sponsors. It's been a fantastic year with them. So again, support our sponsors. Each and every one that we tell you about are people that we have done business with or would do business with. And I'll just tell you, are genuine, great businesses to work with. All right. So we got the underappreciated cats out of the way. And I tell you who's, wow, overappreciated early in his tenure. And I saw this one coming. I'll tell you when I'm wrong, was Billy Napier at Florida. Florida losing players in the portal, and it didn't get much better on National Signing Day. I have a prediction. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Lane Kiffin will be your next head coach at Florida.
I think that's not crazy to think. That's not crazy to think at all.
He fits the mold of Steve Spurrier, and people want to harken back to the good old days, which they shouldn't, but they made a lot of bad hires anyway. So why wouldn't they make another one? And Kiffin might be a really good hire.
I think he'd be a heck of a hire for them.
I think he would too, as long as he, stayed out of trouble. So that
those Florida girls, man.
But what did you think of Florida's signing class before we take a look at Georgia and Alabama, who are in their same old spot, and then we'll get A&M as well?
It was a disaster. Remember, Dave, let's talk about this for a minute. The reason they stuck with Billy Napier for as long as they did was because they were so high on the fact that Billy Napier was bringing in a top 5 class. I mean, that was the whole thing that they were selling us, was that Billy Napier's got a class. It doesn't matter they're struggling this year. He's going to have them being really good next year. And then the early signing period comes, and they've gone from the number 3 class to the number 16 class. They lost 7 blue chip commitments in the last 5 weeks. You know how crazy that is? They've lost 7 that flipped. And I believe just yesterday, so just naming them real quick: Xavier Filsheim, Amaris Williams, Adarius Hayes, Jamonte Walker, Wendell Mack, Nazir Johnson, Isaiah Williams. And this is not, I'm just going to tell you guys this. Flips happen. This is not normal. When this happens, when this level happens, you're done as a coach. It's over. You don't get that back.
I have a pet peeve when somebody says, I could have done that. Like I could have turned my head and batted that ball down while a guy's running 4-4 down the field. No, you couldn't have. I mean, people say that in sports all the time. I could hit 90% from the free throw line in the NBA. No, you probably couldn't have.
Or no, the best is I could break a 540. No, you can't.
Yeah, no, you can't. But seriously, dead serious. With a budget, Caleb and I could have gotten a top 15 class at Florida. It is that easy to recruit there. That's about bottom of the barrel. I remember one time, I think Derek Dooley had one that was 25, and people said it was still a top 25 class. Given Tennessee's facilities, top 25, bottom of the barrel. That's the floor. You should absolutely be better than that. There is no excuse for where Florida is standing other than they hired the wrong coach. And Tennessee fans should be excited about that, because he is laying a foundation of mediocrity that will play itself out, not just in 2024, but 25, 26. That program is going to need a major overhaul, and they've still got another year with him unless they do something crazy like fire him right now.
I mean, they should maybe consider it. And here's the crazy part, though, and I'm going to bring this up.
I actually thought that last week before National Signing Day. I thought they should go ahead and make a move, get ahead of everybody, like we saw A&M do. Go hire your coach and try to salvage a National Signing Day, the early one. That was my thought.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. And here's the crazy part. So we're going to talk about this later in the show, but guys, it's no longer Power 5. there used to be 2 levels of Division I, Power 5, Group of 5. Now it's Power 2, SEC and Big Ten, and then the other Power 5 schools that aren't in the SEC or Big Ten. Well, Dave, Florida is the only school that's in the SEC or the Big Ten. They should have a distinct power advantage over Florida State and Miami immediately, right? Just because of that. They should have their pick of the litter of Florida. One of the things that always held Florida back in recruiting, to give them a break, was you have to compete with 2 other Power 5 schools. You don't have to compete with them anymore. You're the top dog because you're in the SEC, and the other 2 are stuck in the ACC. Well, guess what? Miami, with arguably the stupidest head coach in football right now, just secured the number 3 ranked recruiting class. Is there any excuse right now for Miami to have the 3rd ranked class and Florida to have the 16th ranked class?
No. Now, I do like what Travis said. We got a call out, and Travis calls us out. He said, y'all said the same stuff on Drinkwitz last year. We did. I think that Drinkwitz, though, is a better X's and O's coach. I like to make fun of him because I think he's a goofball. But as far as recruiting, he has a greater challenge at Missouri than Billy Napier or any Florida coach would ever have. So I think Drinkwitz is a better overall coach. I know I make fun of him a lot. Where did Missouri fall in the standings? I'm trying to find them. They're at 22. So I think Drinkwitz is a coach that can get more out of less. I think Billy Napier's bringing in less, and have we seen him get more out of what he's had? I haven't.
No, Billy Napier's a recruiter, and he hasn't brought in good recruiting classes. So I mean, look, it is what it is. And so for him to lose out because of the different layers, Florida right now, Dave, I was ready to put Florida on the same level of LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia in terms of best jobs in America. I was ready to put Florida on that level because I don't think they have legitimate competition for talent in the state right now. They shouldn't. Miami and Florida State shouldn't have better classes than Florida does right now. That's a travesty if you're Florida. It's the best job in the state. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Because they're in the SEC.
I would have argued Florida State because I would have said they could easily win the ACC and make the college football playoff, but they didn't. So, yes, now
being in the ACC is like being in a group of 5 school, right? You have to compete. Like the SEC is going to get the pick of the litter if you're Florida.
No, absolutely. All right. So your thoughts on Alabama and Georgia? No great surprise. I don't think that they had a fantastic class again.
Georgia, everybody freaked out about them in the transfer portal, and they lost a 5-star quarterback committing to Nebraska, still had the number 1 class. Kirby Smart's got a machine there. Alabama's got the number 2 class, but we saw this in the SEC title game. I think something is very clear, Dave, right now, which is that Georgia is, all things being equal, a better job than Alabama. But in-game strategy, Nick Saban's a better coach than Kirby Smart. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so too. So I don't think Nick Saban cares as much about the number 1 class anymore. He doesn't care about losing out to Georgia anymore. He just knows that if he can stay competitive with Georgia, he'll outcoach. I mean, they beat Georgia because Nick Saban outcoached circles around Mike Bobo. And Nick Saban's a better offensive coordinator than Mike Bobo is. And that's funny to say because offense is Mike Bobo's calling card.
That sounds insane, but you might well be right. All right, we're going to visit with Josh Ward coming up here momentarily, and we are going to dive into where the Vols more methodical with their approach to recruiting and returning players and transfer portals. I certainly thought that. Good enough, or great? How would you describe Tennessee's class? 2 minutes, and Josh Ward, my hero, after this. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is Off the Hook Sports.
Sand and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Welcome back. The show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksandjones.com, or go to banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney, whether it has to do with personal injury or criminal defense. Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksjones.com. Josh Ward joins us now as we bring in Josh. He's on the Sports Animal from noon to 3 and absolutely bringing it every day. And Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I hope you guys are.
We are. Josh's appearance is brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. I'll tell you more about them. But first, your early impressions, Josh, of the way Tennessee approached this class. Because to me, this class was in a weird way as made up by the Cooper Mazes and Keenan Pilleys of the world as it was freshmen. Because there's only so much NIL money to go around. You had to keep those guys in-house. Your thoughts on kind of this new view of recruiting with having to take care of returning players?
Yeah, the short-term conversation about the impact on Tennessee's roster is more about the guys who decided to use that extra year of eligibility, like Cooper, like the tackles on the offensive line. Tennessee gets some interior defensive line help coming back, which is critical. If Amari Thomas decided to move on, if Omar Norman Lott decided to move on, then I think the Vols could be in real trouble. The offensive line was a huge concern when we had the conversation 2 or 3 months ago, but now we have answers about 2024, what that line will look like. Now in 2025, the offensive line across the board and the interior of the defensive line, those are big questions because those players we're talking about are coming back for one more year, not multiple. The transfer portal search is not finished. Tennessee can find some more help there potentially, but what the offensive line looks like in 2025 will largely be answered by guys like Sham Umarov and Bison Lang from last year's class, and then this group that signed this week, Bennett Warren, Satterwhite, that group. Those players are going to have to hit, a lot of them at least, on the offensive line for Tennessee to keep pace with what it wants to be, because most of next year's group will have to be replaced.
Just for the record, I didn't like much about Bison Lang's high school tape, but the limited time that he's kind of been in and garbage time, I liked what he did, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. So I think I had that guy misevaluated. I think he's going to end up being a 2, perhaps 3-year starter. Josh's appearance before we get to this methodical approach to recruiting that Tennessee had is brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Imagine having the best spas made right here in the U.S. in your backyard, where they're right there in Athens. They have the showroom. They deliver. Go to dynastyspas.com. They also have the fantastic chemicals to keep your pool or spa working exactly perfect. That's dynastyspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Caleb?
Josh, yeah, so getting to this methodical approach to recruiting, before you were on, I talked to Dave, and I want to get your thoughts on this, that because of the NIL and the transfer portal, college football it's not exactly like college basketball, but it's a lot closer to college basketball where, college basketball has one and dones, and a lot of teams build on that. And I guess college football now, it can be like 2 and dones, 2.5 and dones. And it seems like Josh Heupel is looking at that and saying, let's take this opposite approach no one's doing, which is let's kind of value an extra level of experience that other schools may not have, which is why I think Tennessee's applying more NIL money to getting players to return. And the comparison I drew is, in basketball, yeah, Kentucky's got the one and dones, but the teams winning the national titles usually have like maybe a 5-star and a couple of 4-stars, but they have a lot more experience every year than Kentucky does. That's why John Calipari only has one national title in his whole career. And do you think college football is kind of transitioning towards that? And do you think that's kind of the way Josh Heupel's kind of playing it, which is maybe a little bit less talent on the recruiting trail, but every couple of years I'll have way more experience than anybody else in the SEC?
Maybe. I think that's difficult to answer until we get through this extra eligibility phase, because it's not like Tennessee went out and got a ton of guys in the transfer portal. They are expected to add 1 or 2 more. They're searching out there just like everybody is. But it's a unique situation because we're still in the phase of players having an extra year beyond their senior season. If Tennessee has really benefited from that the last couple of years. The first year that Josh Heupel took over, he had players like Velus Jones on offense and Matthew Butler on defense that stuck around for 1 year when they were dealing with a scholarship issue. That really helped. Year 2, we talked about this. Hendon Hooker coming back with an extra year changed the direction of the program, or at least in the short term, what they were able to do. They weren't winning 11 games if Hendon Hooker was out of eligibility. I can't imagine the scenario where they would have done that. So having these guys come back while they are still trying to fill holes and make up for a 2021 class that would be the rising senior class into 2024, that class is essentially gone. It's like it didn't exist when you look at the roster heading into next year. So having these players come back helps with that. But a year from now, let's see what they're doing. In this recruiting class, Tennessee signing some very highly touted players like Mike Matthews. Braylon Staley, I think, is a really nice prospect wide receiver that they held off South Carolina against. Boo Carter's a big-time get. Ross, some really important players in the offensive line class. Looks like a nice group. They went after other really highly touted players and just fell short on a few. And that's why they're ranked where they are, with a top 15 class that is good, but not where Georgia and Alabama are. And they're telling us still what you really need to do, aren't they? You need to go get the best players in high school and hold on to as many of them as you can and develop as many of them as you can. Texas is doing that. Texas is coming. Okay, so this isn't the make fun of Texas kind of program now. They're in the playoff and they're signing a big-time class again, and you're going to have to deal with them. So, yes, the transfer portal and veteran players that you either know or you have an idea of what you're getting out of them, I do think that's important. But you need to go get the most talented players that you can develop over I'm going to say 3 years, because the most talented players are planning to be there for 3 years and then go on to the NFL.
Josh, let me ask you this question. It's today's tough question, brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. And the question is, Tennessee's 2024 signing class is good, good enough, or great?
I think it's a good class. I think Tennessee has some difference-making players that can run, like Mike Matthews, like Staley, like Boo Carter. Caleb Beasley can come in and compete at corner right away. Competition is real there. Maybe more real this year than we might be a year ago because they had so many veterans returning. Jermod McCoy comes in with some college experience, but it's a much less experienced defensive backfield with this coaching staff than last year. So those guys look really good on paper coming in, as does the offensive line class. If there were to be the stunner that you add Jordan Seaton, who's still kind of hanging out there, that really changes how that offensive line group is looked at from a talent perspective. But still, let's assume he goes somewhere else. This is a good offensive line group. Interior of the defensive line, I've seen it mentioned in the chat. McKinley is a defensive tackle that has been committed to Texas A&M, highly touted player that is planning to visit Tennessee in January. That's kind of a must get if you're going to change the conversation about the defensive line recruiting. That would be one of the bigger disappointments of this class, is help on the interior of the defensive line. So it's a good class, good players. But what I typically do if we're going to judge a class before everyone arrives is look at Tennessee versus the competition it will face in the SEC. And if you're 12th or 13th in the nation, that's going to leave you 6th, 7th, 8th in the SEC. It's not about what other conferences are doing. which is a shortened list now, of course. It's about what's happening in your own conference, and Tennessee has some catching up to do still.
Hey, Caleb, if I can, I want to play off Dylan's comment real quick. He says we got to put a show on next year. The roster turnaround in 25 is scary. I actually don't think it's as scary as 24 would have been had it not been for Campbell and Mays returning and Omari as well. I'm not as concerned about the 25 turnaround and now not the 24 turnaround, because it appears to me, looking at Tennessee's direction in recruiting, they're going to build their lines from within and from within high school recruiting, which I think is key. I don't think you can go pick up 2 or 3 offensive or defensive linemen and expect them to have a major impact in the SEC via the transfer portal.
I don't think you can either. I think you can get a plug-and-play kind of guy, but the cohesion you need there, especially on the offensive line, and just the amount of big-time players in those positions group is going to be short, and everybody's going to want them. So counting on going out and getting big-time linemen to come in and help year in, year out is realistically not going to work. So it needs to come from last year's class and this year's class if we're looking at 2025. I don't know yet in 25. And the offensive line is a massive question for the year after next. Some of those guys still have plenty to prove next year, but at least you know who's out there and bare minimum what you're getting. We have no idea for 2025 on the offensive line, and the interior on the defensive line in 2025 is going to be a big question. James Pierce is gone after next year. So some of the players that have been brought in, like Shadavion Bradley, Caleb Herring, now Jordan Ross, those guys need to develop and hit because Tyler Barron's gone and James Pierce has one more year to go. So that's an assumption, but it's a good one that he's not here in 2025. So Tennessee needs to prepare for some of those difference makers this past season and next year to not be a part of the conversation this time a year from now.
Yeah, Caleb, I can see how you can pay a center to stay around, but an elite edge pass rusher like Pierce, I don't know that you can get enough NIL dollars. I mean, we can start a Vol report with James, but I don't know that that's going to be enough NIL dollars to keep him in Knoxville in 2025.
Yeah, no. And Josh, funny enough, you mentioned something about Texas coming. Look, 6 of their 8 blue chips are from the state of Texas. And I've talked for years about how if Texas has a number 5 class, it should be a number 10 class because in-state talent in Texas, while good, is massively overrated on the recruiting trail. And you can track that through the last 20 years on how much they've missed. But in terms of Tennessee, do you think one of the reasons they're going all in on 2024, I wonder if Tennessee's going the Clemson route with Dabo Swinney back in the 2010s, which is to say this. I think when all the other programs in the SEC are doing what they need to be doing, that is, you don't have morons like Ray Goff and Mike DeBose coaching Alabama and Georgia. I think that it's a pipe dream.
His name, by the way, is Drunken Ray Goff, according to.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, to celebrate 98 series when he showed up to recruit Mercedes Hamilton hammered. Go ahead. I think
it's a pipe dream to think that out of the blue, Tennessee can get national title caliber talent when Alabama and Georgia are at where they need to be. I just don't think it's possible. So I think they have to be a little creative and figure out a way to try to get there without that level of talent. And then maybe just getting there will give Heupel the credibility he needs to get that talent down the road. So my philosophy is maybe they realize that, so that's why they're all in on 2024, because I don't know if they may be where they need to be in terms of talent in 2024, but they are in terms of experience, and a generational quarterback can make up for lack of talent elsewhere. So does it seem like Heupel is all in on just 2024 to be his, launching pad, rocket launcher, I guess?
Well, maybe so. I think most coaches, if they're in a position to succeed, should be thinking short term, what do we need to do to win? And we can continue to, you're always having recruiting conversations. They're recruiting for 2025, 2026 already. That's already happening. But having conversations about what will happen 3 years from now, so much will change in terms of what the competition is, who will be coaching where, players will move around some. But your point about Nico is a big one, isn't it? If Nico is able to become the player that he was projected out of high school, then that should happen quickly. If he really is the best quarterback or one of the two best quarterbacks, one of the two best players in the 2023 class, well, by 2024, he should be playing at a very high level. And if he's playing at a higher level than Joe Milton this past season, and you have an offensive line that's back that should be as good or really better, shouldn't they be better next year with an extra year to play together? And they should be better at wide receiver, as good as 2 years ago when you have Jalen Hyatt catch 15 touchdowns. I'm not saying that, but better than 2023. That should be the internal expectation. Jalen Wright's a big-time player to replace. They do have talent at the position to help with that, but Nico is the difference maker in the conversation. If Nico can be that level talent on the field and explode in Josh Heupel's offense, then that gives them a chance to go win at least 9 or 10 games. I mean, more than that when you play Georgia and Alabama, plus go to Oklahoma is a big ask. But 10-2 gets you to the playoff. That's a possibility if Nico can become what people said he would be when he arrived at Tennessee.
Josh Heupel said that Nico made it hard to find another quarterback in the portal. That gets a big duh. I'm sure it definitely was, because he's sitting there as the entrenched starter for 2024 and may play a lot from what I'm told in the Citrus Bowl. But I also think there's something to be said. I don't think Josh Heupel wants to go the portal route anymore. I mean, he had Hooker. That worked out. May have misjudged that in playing Milton over him. But I think he wants a guy that he can develop, because when it comes to footwork and some of the things they do, it's unique to his system. So I agree that Nico makes it hard, Josh, but I don't know that Josh Heupel wants quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I think he wants his own guys like Merklinger to bring up in the system.
Yeah, maybe. I've been on the side of go find a veteran quarterback.
I agree.
There's the NIL budget idea. Well, if you're going to get a veteran that understands he's the backup, that's not a big cost. So I still think it's a little scary. I mean, when we talk about the offensive line, they better protect, because if Nico goes down next season, there goes the conversation we just had about, well, there's your potential, with Nico, because I don't know that Merklinger's the backup at the start of the season. I would bet against that, in fact. So I'm a little surprised that they haven't last year or this year been able to go out and find a veteran quarterback who understands his role. There's so many players out there, and I'm sure Nico makes it difficult, but to go get that would be to go get a more established, big potential player. We saw Ole Miss go make a run at multiple quarterbacks last year with Jackson Dart already in place. Look at what Oregon has done. So I'm sure it's harder. It's definitely not impossible, because we're seeing other schools go find some help. And again, we're not talking about getting a Nico level talent. Alabama brought in Tyler Buckner, who ended up not really playing well for them. Now he's not even going to play football. He's going to go play lacrosse, going back to Notre Dame. But they still had a little extra experience, somebody to count on in the room. And I would want that if I'm Josh Heupel.
Well, Josh, I'm sorry, but I would want that too, but I think there's a difference, and I think Tennessee should be happy about it, which is, look, yes, Tyler Buckner, when he committed to Alabama, he committed because he thought he'd get a fair chance he thought he'd get a shot to start, because Ty Simpson didn't pan out, and everybody who had eyes thought Jalen Milroe was awful last year. And turns out, looks like that may have been more Bill O'Brien's fault than Jalen Milroe's fault. But I think that with Nico, I think a lot of these veterans that go look elsewhere, they do look in hopes of having a fair chance to start. And I don't even know if it's fair. I think rumblings are out there that Nico is just that good. And unless he gets hurt, you're not going to have a shot. I mean, I got to be honest. Let's not forget. Taven Jackson hit the portal within a week of Nico taking part in bowl practices last year. That wasn't a coincidence. He saw how good Nico was, and he said, I'm never going to beat this guy to start, so I'm out of here. I think those are where the rumblings are across the country right now, which is, I think everybody knows that Nico is that good. What do you think about my thoughts on that?
Oh, I definitely think that's the case. That's why I attached with it veteran quarterbacks who would be happy to be a backup, a quarterback that's been in college that understands, maybe I'll get a chance to help, but if you want to be a coach in the future, if that's something that you're interested in, attaching yourself to Josh Heupel's staff would be of value. A better example in recent years would be somebody like Hunter Johnson, who was a very highly touted quarterback, actually committed to Tennessee at one point, went to Clemson, didn't work out there. Here comes Trevor Lawrence. I'm out of here, went to Northwestern. He went back to Clemson to finish out his college time. And, I think it was a valuable piece to add to the room. I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about going out and getting Malachi Nelson from USC to come to Tennessee. I'm not talking about that level player with big aspirations. I'm talking about a quarterback that understands what his role would be coming into the program. Insurance. This is what we're talking about here, not big-time potential players. So anybody that wants to be the guy that wants to start and would come in and compete is not going to look at Tennessee as that kind of place. But somebody that could be of value to be in the room with Nico and to be able to help in case injury occurs. Maybe we've talked about this guy. He ended up leaving to go be a starter, but at one point, Gardner Minshew, who's playing in the NFL right now, was content with going to Alabama to be a backup quarterback. That level, he was at a smaller school. That kind of quarterback is what I'm talking about. Not a guy that's been at a Power 5 that is looking at one more shot to be the guy. That you're not going to get that. But somebody that understands, I'm going to go be the backup, and I'm going to be around an offense that's really good at a big-time program in the SEC. And if something happens and they need somebody to help, I can be that guy.
Yeah, but Josh, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I would put myself in a position of being a possible backup or starting at a smaller school, and I'd rather play. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Coaches used to always say they want one.
Well, they're not going to go get those. I'm talking about players who would be okay. Like that has to be on their list of okay, I'll be a backup at Tennessee. I'll be a part of a big time program. Anybody that wants to start is not coming to Tennessee. That's not what I'm talking about.
My question is how many of those dudes are out there? Because coaches used to want to get a quarterback in every single class. But now with the transfer portal, I mean, I'd rather go someplace to play. Me personally, you may be different. Caleb may be different. Kids may be different. I'd rather go someplace and play and know that I had an opportunity to play as opposed to go to a Tennessee that has better facilities. That's me personally. I'd rather play.
Sure.
I think it's a hard sell to tell a guy that, hey, you're gonna come in and be a Trent Dilfer type.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is. That's Josh Heupel's job is to find out who that is. Yeah. I don't have access to the portal. I don't know all the quarterbacks out there, but I just gave you some examples of guys who were content with that. So I'm not coming up with some fictitious idea. I'm talking about guys that have done that they have had a chance to start, didn't necessarily work out, and they realized, hey, being a backup is a better option for me. Isn't that how Lane Kiffin ended his college career? He decided to continue playing, knowing he wouldn't be the starter, but he wanted to be a coach someday. So he hung around to get that kind of experience, being around, was it Tedford's staff at Fresno? Am I correct in that? But anyway, that's how Lane ended up his time. He wasn't going to play, but he wanted to be a coach in the future. So those are the kinds of guys that I'm talking about. And the amount of players that are out there should be able to find out who those guys are. Josh Heupel it appears he has a different idea than I do, but I just I worry if Nico gets hurt. I don't know what Tennessee does. Now, I'll say this: we've talked about this guy in the past. I would not have started Gaston Moore over Joe Milton. You're aware of that, but maybe Josh Heupel
I wouldn't have either.
Maybe he's more comfortable than I'm aware. If something happens with Nico with going to Gaston, I'm sure that's not going to make a lot of the viewers right now comfortable, but. I think he's probably the backup quarterback, not Jake Merklinger, at least early in the season.
I think there's spring at least, and that's going to be a heck of a spring game. People are going to be excited to see Nico. I think there is a seismic shift in roster building and the upper levels of college football, and I want to get to that. Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, a great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to Hemp House Chat with 2 T's, hemphousechatwith2ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. Here are my thoughts on that. I think my son goes to UMass. I think of Marcus Camby. They still have a section there. They don't even know that Dr. J played there, I don't think, but that's okay. And then you have the guy was it for Cincinnati that looked like Method Man. Josh, you'll remember this.
Kenyon Martin.
Yes, Kenyon Martin got hurt right before the NCAA tournament. I think that's where you're going to be with quarterbacks. Like you're going to load up and you're going to get one special guy. And if he gets hurt midway through the season, fans are just going to have to be understanding because you're not going to have a great backup. That sounds awful, but I just think with the transfer portal, that's where college football is headed with most programs.
Yeah, I think that's more often going to happen. Sometimes you have to be lucky in having the right kind of backup. Having a Cardell Jones available to come in is unlikely. It was unlikely when it happened for Ohio State, but they won a national title with him being able to step up. But that doesn't mean you don't try to go get some help. Like I'm not aware of how much effort there is to go get help last year or this year. If the idea of just being resigned to, well, we have Nico, so we can't go find somebody, that's not going to fly with me. So yeah, if you try and you just get turned down by a bunch of guys, then okay. But I don't know how much effort there is, honestly. So just saying, well, it's tough. We got Nico. Okay, yeah, I get it. But
you definitely don't throw in the towel. I don't want to give you that impression.
Yeah,
it's program. It's case by case because we're talking Cardell Jones, but Ohio State was loaded with NFL talent all over the field when Cardell Jones stepped in. Whereas Tennessee is more kind of. I'm not saying
Cardell
Josh
versus
Heupel.
Gaston Moore. Who are we taking in this argument?
Yes, obviously Cardell in that moment. But what I'm saying is I'm not comparing Josh Heupel to what's his face, Gene Chizik at all. But I'm saying Tennessee's in a situation where they're going to be disproportionately dependent on Nico next year, similar to how Auburn was disproportionately dependent on Cam Newton in 2010. And so I think that as long as Josh Heupel's future as a offensive coach, who is a quarterback whisperer, he's going to be dependent on his quarterback more. So Urban Meyer could, again, he won a national title with Chris Leak, who was not that good that year. Okay, so I mean, because Florida was loaded with talent everywhere else. So I think Florida, Ohio State, Georgia's of the world, Alabama's, they could probably mix in and out quarterbacks a little better than a Tennessee's going to be able to, which is going to have to go all in on their quarterback. And they're just not going to have the option of if their quarterback gets hurt, it's just going to be tough break if you're Tennessee. It's like when Peyton Manning got hurt with the Colts. Not that bad, but
yeah, for sure. If Nico goes down, Tennessee is in big trouble. I mean, so I don't think it. Yeah, that's why I'm stressing. I would be trying to find somebody that can help. By the way, part of this is a compliment to Josh Heupel when I talk about trying to go find somebody. When I said if you want to be a coach in the future, if you want to be a part of the program, if you're a quarterback, being connected to Josh Heupel is more valuable than most coaches in the country. So Josh Heupel himself should be a selling point to a veteran quarterback that would be happy or comfortable coming in to serve in a backup role to help a young, talented quarterback. Josh Heupel's pitch should largely be based around, hey, if you want to be a part of this game in the future, not as a player, but as a coach, let me help you. I would be very interested if I'm a veteran quarterback, not planning to start, but to be a part of the game beyond my college career. I would want to learn from Josh Heupel. I would want to be around him and his program. His quarterback that he had at UCF, whose career unfortunately ended because of his knee injury, where did he decide to go this past year? He decided to come to Knoxville to be a part of what Tennessee's doing. So part of it is a huge compliment. It's praise to Josh Heupel for how good of a coach he is and how respected he is as an offensive mind.
A lot of people don't know that Josh Ward was a very talented rapper back in his day, known as Jaw Ward. So can you finish this line for me? And that is METHOD. No? Man, you didn't get into Method Man back in the day?
A little bit. I liked Wu-Tang. I don't know the exact line that you're referencing.
Yeah, it's the line where he just spells his first name and then says his last name. It's be like Josh Ward. Josh Ward. It's a great song.
Yeah. I love Notorious. Remember that one? That's good.
Beautiful. All right, Josh, have a fantastic day, weekend, and a very Merry Christmas to you. You're a blessing to Off the Hook Sports, and we greatly appreciate it. And nothing but the best for you and your beautiful family.
Yep. Same to you guys. Same to everybody watching and listening. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Method Man back in the day, very underrated rapper.
I wasn't a fan of Wu-Tang or Method Man. Sorry.
Remember the Christina Aguilera Dirty video?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's something you don't show in front of your grandmother. Ron Slay up next. We're going to talk some Tennessee basketball with the man, Ron Slay. We love visiting with him. Hang tight with me. And also, before we get done on the program, please hit that like and subscribe button. Turn your notifications on. We're going to have some more National Signing Day highlights and how some of the Blue Bloods desperately need to get in the SEC and Big Ten. Interesting take by Caleb Calhoun. But Ron Slay is up next. So we keep rolling on, and we'll still get your thoughts on today's tough question, which is Tennessee's class good, good enough, or great? So far, good and good enough are splitting the lead. And we'll also get your thoughts on those undervalued Vol signees. Stay tuned. Ron Slay up next. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We're represented by Banks & Jones. This is Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Back to show represented by Tennessee's trial attorney, Banks & Jones. Tennessee's trial attorneys play to win. BanksandJones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle for less. Banks & Jones is your call, whether it comes to criminal defense or whether it's personal injury. Truly Tennessee's trial attorneys. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com. This gentleman that joins us now is smart enough to be a lawyer, smart enough to be about anything he wants to be, but he just happens to be one of the best basketball analysts in the biz. Watch out, Jay Billis. Ron Slay joins us now. Ron, how are you, sir? Look at him. He's punching.
Shadow boxing, baby. I'm ready.
Love it. I love it.
Ron, can I get Ron Slay to want to punch me first? Because Ron is a Nashville kid.
What's going on with me, man? There we go.
There you go. Ron, I know you're a Nashville guy, so I don't know if you know this, Ron. Everybody from Nashville hates me right now. Because I said that Lipscomb Academy and Ensworth produce some of the most overrated high school football talent in the country. So my question to you is, which one has more overrated talent, Lipscomb or Ensworth?
Just making it worse. Ronnie's making it worse for himself. I got an email from God that was from Lipscomb, and he said, I'll never listen to your show again.
Wow. So guess what? Now, I'm going to be biased in this, man, because I've trained a lot of kids that go to both. And coached at Ensworth. I think the problem is you're so used to looking back in the day and you're seeing guys like Corn Elder, Jalen Ramsey, who was at Ensworth, transferred to BA, Big Tiny, that went transferred to Pearl and then went on the UT to play. I forgot Tiny's last name. That's crazy.
Richardson.
Yeah, Tiny Richardson. Yeah. So you see that crop come along, and those were at that time, man. This 1 in 100 that you're pulling out of there, and I think the melting pot is so much with people moving to Nashville. You don't get that homegrown talent, but you look at it now, man. Look what you got. You got Tyler Barron. Tyler, I think, had a really, really good season last year. Andre Terrentine made a terrible mistake going to Ohio State first and then coming back to the University of Tennessee. Should have went there first. Wesley Walker, who would have came there. Wesley is a hell of a player. I think when you had the downward part of Tennessee football, I think you kind of lost a lot of guys. Think about how many guys left from Innsworth and Lipscomb that went to Alabama, went to Georgia, went to Mississippi State, all these other SEC teams when you didn't have that gate around, thanks to Jeremy Pruitt saying he don't really want to recruit right here in the state of Tennessee. So you missed out on the good ones, Caleb. That's all it was. They still got them. You just missed out on the good ones. So now it's coming back up, and you're starting to see guys come back, man.
Yeah, you had goofballs like Butch Jones and Derek Dooley doing their
Bingo.
No, Butch Jones did recruit Nashville, and guess what? He turned out to have bust of recruiting classes because of it.
No. Guess what his problem was, Caleb? He recruited stars instead of recruiting players that fit. He recruited if you had a 5-star beside your name, he thought that was going to be better than whatever the 3-star. The 3-star just hadn't been seen as much. That's what Butch's problem was. He was recruiting to keep his job instead of recruiting to fill the stands and get some wins.
There has not been a more true statement ever spoken on this show than what you just said. To the point where he would call recruiting analysts and say, if you don't add this star, if you don't add a star to this guy, we might limit your practice access. That really happened. I mean, seriously, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but these guys were my friends. You had two people that covered Tennessee for years before Butch Jones was there that left because it was such a nerve-wracking affair. The guy's a sociopath, but we'll move on.
My lighting is killing me, y'all. I can't figure it out. I'm about to go crazy.
You look great.
Okay, thank you.
You're a handsome devil. All right.
Yeah, I'm dark again. No.
Dark again? Okay.
Dark again.
Right. We'll work with it.
There you go, right there where you're sitting.
Hey, here we go.
That looks good.
Hey, everybody.
All right. So you got a couple of games coming up in Tarleton State and and then after that, I think they have Norfolk State.
Norfolk State, yeah.
They're going to beat those two teams, right? So let me ask you the major goals right now. Give me 1, 2, or 3 that Tennessee needs to figure out before they start SEC play January the 6th against Ole Miss.
One, I would say rebounding with purpose and dominating in it. I think you can't rely on 1 or 2 guys to be able to go in there and get it. You got to do like what Santi did. You got to go in there and get 9 rebounds. It may not be that many, but you got to be given the effort to go get that, to help out guys like Adu and Tobe Awaka, and really kind of get your impact as far as rebound goes, get that felt on the offensive boards as well. I think that's always a big part to Tennessee's success when you can go out there and offensive rebound. Tobe does a great job of it, but I think effort needs to be given by more. Also, you got to be able to keep that balance. So it's only certain people that's supposed to be going to the boards offensively. You got to be able to keep that balance to get back defensively to balance the floor. But there's got to be more of an effort to me in rebounding on both ends of the floor and giving your guys second chances, because you shoot the ball too well from 3. You got to think about the games where they've been able to stretch out and get away from teams and put a gap in between teams. It's because of the offensive boards that Tobe's gotten and being able to kick it out for 3. If you go back to the Bruce Pearl era, the best time to shoot a 3-pointer is off of offensive rebound. You got a lot of great shooters. Go in there, get the rebound, kick it out, you get open 3. So that's one. The 2 is the rotation. Being able to get a rotation down, and I think it needs to be 8 to 9 and not 6 to 7, even if you're punishing guys. So guys got to do what they're supposed to do, not in the games, but in practice for the young guys. They can't stunt their growth by taking a practice off or not going as hard as you're supposed to, where that bleeds over into the game, and coach don't want to give you any playing time because you didn't go hard in practice. So now you're stunting your growth by getting that game time experience. So they got to do what they can in practice, lead into these games, show what you can do on that stage when you're playing Norfolk and Tarleton. How you say Tarleton? However you say. How you say their name? Yeah, what? The two schools they playing. So, like when so
I think it's the same way you say it at the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Was that
Carleton?
That's like Carleton.
Yeah. I think you're right. Good job, Dave. Always finding some similarities.
I would just thought Charleston, South Carolina, but okay.
Yeah, that's what I actually thought of too, Taylor. I like Carleton better though because that resonates with our era. But I think, me and Dave, we're old. But
just
I think
for the record, Fresh Prince of Bel Air are good times. Oh, did we lose Ron?
Oh no, we lost you, Ron.
Oh, let's bring Ron back. We got to get Ron back. We'll work on getting Ron back here. He got a little fidgety and then he froze up. So we'll reboot him. Yeah, fresh times or good times. Fresh Prince are good times. Fresh Prince are good times. Oh, we got him back.
We got Ron.
He's back. Ron, I was asking you, Fresh Prince. Yeah,
you must have something somebody didn't like.
Okay, there we are.
That's what
Wait, you're blaming me for this?
No, I don't know who it was. Somebody said something that the internet didn't like because it knocked me out. It was like no, so I'm gonna leave that debate up to somebody else. Me personally, I love good times. I'm a good times guy, but I can watch Fresh Prince of Bel Air reruns all day long. So
yeah, man, I can't believe they killed JJ's dad off in that thing. That was a contract.
I know. That's
hurt.
That's how you fumble the bag. Exactly.
Guys, we're three Tennesseans, and we were represented by a senator who literally invented the internet in the 90s. So how are we struggling with the internet right now?
Right. This is a me problem. This ain't a y'all problem. This is most definitely a me problem. I'm telling you that. I'm in a Marriott. I don't know what's going on. Marriott, get y'all stuff together. But the third thing I would say, man, is being able to establish Dalton Connect if you're not the leading scorer. What is your impact on the game if you don't happen to be able to have the rhythm that day going into that game? You see the last game, Zakai, and the NC State game, Zakai got rolling, Josiah got going. Santi's comfortable with doing other things. If you're Dalton Connect, if you're not a part of the offense as far as scoring goes, what else are you going to bring to the game? Will it be defensively? Will it be in there getting rebounds? Will it be able to draw guys and kick? Will you be able to be a decoy? Like, what will you be able to bring to the game? And how will everybody else play off of that? I think it's going to be three crucial things moving into conference play.
Ryan, you brought up Zakai, and Tennessee obviously shot very well from three last games. Zakai and Josiah Jordan James. How much of that had to do with, even though he only scored 4 points, how much did Jonas Aidoo's 3 previous games before then have to do with that? Because it seemed like NC State, much more than other teams, was much more worried about what Jonas Aidoo would do to them under the basket, which it seemed like it opened up a lot more shots for Zakai and Josiah. Is that a fair statement?
Without question, that was huge. That you don't want to necessarily draw the defense into having to double or anything, but you want them to be aware. If we throw this ball inside and you don't bring a guy digging or a stunt on the other side where when Jonas faces up, he can see help side coming, then he's shown the ability to go off and be able to score and be able to score efficiently. And I think that's huge to be able to have. That's why I also believe that it's huge for Toby Awaka when he gets in, even though he doesn't have a lot of moves in the post, but be able to give him the ball and be comfortable with him missing the shot, making a shot, but being able to keep the defense conscious of we will throw the ball inside. And then off of that, we'll continue to cut and move. Aidoo is not the best passer in the world, but he is able to give it up, especially when he faces up on the basket and get guys cutting. So you always want that to be a threat. Anytime you can constrict the defense and get them to condense into the paint and then have to get back out. And then you got these guys that pump fake becomes lethal, but it all starts by being able to get paint touches. And if you can't do it by dribble penetration, it's always good to have somebody to throw it into.
If you want to hear from Ron week in and week out, hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure and turn your notifications on. His appearance is brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Imagine having the best spas right here, made in the United States in your backyard. They're in Athens. They have a showroom and they deliver. DynastySpas.com. Also, the best chemicals for your spas and pools. DynastySpas.com. It's right down below if you need to click on it. With Zakai Ziegler, what's his ceiling? And what does Rick Barnes expect out of him?
I think Rick Barnes, let's go with what he expects first. I think he expects him to be able to handle the ball without turning it over, get guys lined up, similar to what the quarterback is expected to do, or if talking about Tennessee football, what the center is expected to do, kind of be that anchor and the leadership that when he's not on the court and be that voice, be able to get the message out and echo exactly what Coach Barnes wants to happen. And if he can't get to Coach Barnes, be able to take over and take the reins and tell the guys, hey, man, this is what we need to lean into. I think he's a guy, man, that when you talk about the ceiling, I honestly –
Oh, Ron's Marriott.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it was the way he's playing. Now, you look at it, Dalton Connect has to adjust when the film gets out. It's difficult to go through the conference play averaging 20. You know what I mean? Like it's rarely done. And you've had guys who won back-to-back SEC Player of the Year that didn't average 19. You know what I'm saying? So it lets you know how difficult it is to do that. So Zakai is a guy, when you're coming off an ACL surgery, the first thing you do when you're getting back healthy, you start working on your shooting motion. So coming from a guy speaking from experience, I couldn't wait to show everybody how much I've been working on my jumper, especially around the top of the key. Where does Zakai make NC State pay? At the top of the key. Now, leading up to this game, he's been shooting these same shots. He just wasn't making them. He was shooting them as deep and everything, so he lets you know he's been practicing this because nobody was getting upset. So they've been seeing him make these shots. It started falling in the NC State game, and I can see leading in the conference play with the ball in his hands as much as he does have it, and as much chaos is caused by Dalton Connect having the ball, he's going to be open on those swing passes. So when the ball is being reversed to try to get it back to the other side after a paint touch, his guy's a little late at closing out. And at the top of the key, that's a long closeout to get back to him. So I can see him honestly leading the balls in scoring. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, the way Josiah Jordan-James playing, I could see him second. Him and Dalton Connect going back and forth in second. But it wouldn't surprise me at all for Zakai to be first team All-SEC, lead Tennessee in scoring, and be second or third in SEC in assists.
Wow. Pretty high ceiling. Ron, lastly, if you're in a Marriott, and so am I, what is your Marriott status?
My Marriott status right now, what am I? I just used it last night. They told me last night. Am I gold?
Well, you may be, but I'm gold elite. I'm just saying.
Well, you know what though, Dave? Because Ron though did something that.
You know what?
Ron just had a nice little shameless plug for himself a second ago, because Ron's like, it's very difficult to average 20 points in the SEC, says the guy who averaged 21.2 points his senior year.
Caleb, did you see that? And guess what, Caleb? I just threw that out there to see if anybody would catch it. But let me add to it now. We know how beloved CeeLo is. And CeeLo has his jersey in the Raptors. CeeLo averaged 18.
I mean...
and CeeLo was shooting like 8 to 10 threes a game. I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Hey, by the way, Ron,
I wish I could have been able to shoot 8 to 10 threes a game.
Did you see my guy Ja the other night, Ron? Ja Morant back?
Man, Ja's back. And it's so good to see.
Officially.
Yes, they are. And they look good. They look good doing it, man. But that lets you know what it's like when you have a guy that can make other people better, man. It's so much easier. Like Desmond Bain being able to step out there and shoot. That's why it's important for Dalton Connect moving forward. Everybody's playing you gap defense. They know when you put the ball on the floor more than once or twice, you're not passing it. You're looking to score. They're getting them hands in there and stealing it. If you get in there and take that one dribble and kick and that ball get rotated, boy, people gonna be in trouble. I'm trying to see my
Gold Elite Lifetime. Just for the record, Gold Elite Lifetime.
But how long you been in it though? That's the problem, Dave.
Like since I was covering you.
See what I'm saying? You're supposed to be you ought to be platinum elite by now, man.
Well,
correction, I'm silver elite.
That's not bad. It's not bad to be on the second tier at the Olympics. It's not top. It's not top, but it's not bad. I mean, so I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. You'll get there.
Hey, I'm getting my points. I'm getting my points up, man. I only got 23.
Where are you on your points?
I am 34,314.
68,000. Sorry.
So Rob, where are you? Because there's three other SEC games tonight. So which city are you in right now?
I'm in Charlotte tonight. I'm in studio. Tonight breaking down the games, and plus I got something special. Santa Slay will make his first appearance tonight.
Oh, cool. What do you do? So what's Santa Slay? Is it you mean on TV or is this like
on TV? Yeah, I'm in studio on TV.
Oh,
yeah, I got to stay tuned. This ought to be fun tonight. I told them the only way I do this if they play Sleigh Bells Ring.
You know what this is right here for our video viewers? These are crosshairs, and they're on Jay Billis because here comes Ron Slay.
I'm on the way. Jay.
I love him though. He's one of the best analysts of all time. You're right there, Ron, buddy. Have a fantastic time in Charlotte. I think it's Tryon Street. Don't get in trouble there, like I've been known to do. And we'll get you gold before you know it.
I'm trying. You know what? I'm looking at it right now. I'm trying to see is there any way I can boost. I'm trying to figure. Can I pay like $5 to boost and get double points?
Yeah. Or I could just make a phone call.
Wow.
See, this guy Ron needs to be. He needs to be.
Ron, he doesn't even do that for me. He doesn't even do that for me, and I work for him.
But I let him use my promo code.
See, that'll get me there.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun place though. I was
Football Writers Association of America promo codes VIP, and they never check your card, and you get a discount. Not that I said that to everybody.
Caleb gets an extra piece of code taken out of his stocking for Christmas because he picked up that 21 points a game average right there. Still waiting on there. Everybody was so amazed by Dalton Connect and these 37 points and all this stuff. I'm just saying, 21 through conference play. It didn't go down. It went up.
I called immediately that little sly factoid you threw in there.
Everybody can't do it. I mean, hey, good luck, everybody. If you're trying to. I mean.
World Traveling Hooker, Smoky Mountain Red says, I guess that makes me
traveling hooker.
Yeah, that makes me a high dollar escort. Slay, I look forward to seeing you on the TV tonight. Thank you for making the time. You are a great individual.
All right, man. Y'all Merry Christmas to everybody out there, man.
Thank you, Ron.
Have a good one, Ron.
This is fun. Yeah, I mean, I was platinum for a short time. But then I started traveling less, and I lost my platinum status. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. We're about to get into some signing day highlights, and I don't know about the college football blue bloods, but they need to get into the SEC and Big Ten like ASAP if they're not already. City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. That's cityheatandair.com. cityheatandair.com. All right, let's take a look at some signing day highlights. 20 of the top 25 classes will be in either the SEC or the Big Ten next year. Now, we heard Chip Kelly at UCLA say eventually you gotta break apart from what is the Power Five right now. So your thoughts on where the college football is now that apparently the same old programs are dominating National Signing Day?
So 20 of the 25 will be in the SEC or the Big Ten next year. Florida State, I don't know if you guys know this, is meeting. They're trying to contemplate their future. If you guys don't know, they are very, very, very upset with the ACC because the ACC nixed them. The ACC nixed them getting into the playoff. The ACC is the reason they're not in the playoff because the ACC nixed the 12-team playoff this year. But that grant of rights is ironclad, guys. They can't get out of it. But this is a really big problem because they lost KJ Bolden, who flipped to Georgia yesterday. Meanwhile, Jordan Seaton, the high-profile guy that Colorado got committed 2 weeks ago, is now most people. He didn't sign yesterday. Not only did he not sign, most analysts are now actually projecting that he's going to flip to Maryland. And the reason that's a big deal has a lot to do with it's not Colorado versus Maryland, Loxley versus Deion, or anything like that, or where he's from. It's that he's flipping to a Big Ten school. And Colorado, I think he's recognizing in the Big 12 is going to be playing with one hand behind their back. And so this is a big, big, big problem going forward. These schools have to somehow work their way to the SEC or the Big Ten. I don't know if they're going to be able to. But Florida,
what programs in the SEC should be worried? Because I don't think that if they do this power conference thing, that every single SEC team and every single Big Ten team are going to be part of a 36-team power conference. So my thoughts are you're going to leave out of Vanderbilt. You're going to leave out some other programs. So which programs in the SEC should be worried, or the Big Ten should be worried about their standing among the best programs in the nation? Or do you think all the Big Ten and all the SEC make it?
I think I think they're all going to make it. That's going to be kind of the thing. They're all going to get in and they're all going to make it. I think Tennessee. I think Vanderbilt is safe. I think Northwestern is safe. They're safer than Colorado or Florida State at this point. And this is why
I'm not. But that just because they're in the SEC and that they automatically get in a bigger another level of college football is kind of idiotic to me. I'm not calling you an idiot, but I just if you separate from the Power Five or whatever it is now, then just because you are a part of the SEC or the Big Ten, I don't think you should necessarily make it. I don't think what is a Rutgers needs to be in a power conference at all, a mega conference. I don't think they need to be in it. I think there's going to be some picking and choosing going on. I think having a tie to the SEC or Big Ten might be a help for like a South Carolina that might be a borderline to make that, but I don't think it's a guarantee you're in.
Well, for the SEC to make some decision to merge with the Big Ten, like the schools themselves aren't going to do this right now because the SEC and the Big Ten still negotiate the TV contracts. So the conferences would have to do this. And for the conferences to do something like this, a certain majority of athletic directors would have to agree to it. And the question becomes, will there be enough athletic directors agree to it? And I think that's where this all stems from. So that's why I think the Vanderbilts and the Northwesterns are safe. And I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they would just combine. Look, let me give you, just to go back to history real quick, Dave. Remember when the old Big Eight combined, like the Southwest dissolves and Texas, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Texas A&M go to join the Big Eight? Remember that? And it's the Big 12 and they combine conferences. You didn't see the Big Eight say, well, we're going to combine with these, but we're not going to take Iowa State with us. We'd rather have this. I mean, they didn't do that. Now, they probably would have rather have done that. You don't think they would have rather just kicked out Iowa State and not have them? But
probably
they made the decision. We're keeping Iowa State. The whole Big Eight goes with us. The Iowa State, the Kansases, the schools that never mattered in football whatsoever at the time, Missouri, all went with Nebraska, Oklahoma, which was really the driving force. Because if they had their chance out there, they probably would have just said Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M. Those were the only four big schools that anybody wanted, and everybody else was a throw-in. And so I think that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that I think the whole SEC and Big Ten are safe, and you're already at 34 teams right there. And so I think the other Power 5 schools are just going to have to jockey, and Florida State is locked into the ACC through 2036. I think that grant of rights is ironclad. I don't think they're getting out of it now.
What about Clemson? Are you leaving out Clemson too?
There's rumors that Clemson might get left out anyway. Some reporting I've heard, Dave, is that the SEC is not as interested in Clemson as we initially thought. They don't really care to add Clemson. And if
you realize that if you talked about a mega conference of 36 teams and Florida State and Clemson are locked in there and the SEC didn't take them in and they didn't make a mega conference, that would essentially signal the end of those two schools as programs of relevance.
Why do you think Florida State and Clemson are working so hard to get out? Why do you think Florida State's working so hard to get out right now? Not just those two. Miami, that's another one. End of relevance for them.
So I'm going to ask the message board, other than Vanderbilt, which SEC teams would you leave out if they were to be left out? If some power conference comes in and they're selecting schools, which SEC programs would you leave out? I'm going to jump to Missouri pretty quick, despite the season that they had. But I think Arkansas would be worried if there were some guys getting pared down. Who else would be worried?
Outside of Vanderbilt and what you brought up, Missouri, it's hard for me to see any SEC teams worried because most SEC programs are revenue generators. They bring in money. I mean, Arkansas, say what you want. You know this, Dave. Their fans are loyal out there. They show up for every game. They are a draw, and they get you into the Texas market in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I would have thought Arkansas would be worried, but, I mean, Roy Kramer saw value in Arkansas 30 years ago when he added them. And now, as we know, and if you guys want to check out my sports history video on the SEC and the conference title games, I brought this up. He mainly added Arkansas and South Carolina because he wanted the conference championship game. He didn't want to expand the SEC. He just wanted the legal reason to be able to have the conference title game in December. That was actually the reason the SEC expanded.
I don't see, if you're a mega conference, how you can possibly have Vanderbilt in there. Let me ask you about some Big Ten teams that should be worried. And it's brought to you by State Farm agent Don Self. Customer service still matters. For well over 40 years, they built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers. If you're looking for a State Farm agent or any agent, you should call 423-396-2126, donself.net, donself.net. It's right below. You can click on that, take care of their customers. Everybody's shopping for a better price, but what happens when you have a claim? You want to know that you have that customer service there. So what Big Ten teams should be worried? I guess you could start arguing the TV factor with Northwestern being the Chicago market, but I don't think there's a lot of Northwestern fans in Chicago.
And Illinois brings you that market anyway.
Yeah, and Maryland should be worried. Rutgers should be worried.
Maryland brings you the DC market. Rutgers, Big Ten cares about TV markets. So Maryland's going to bring you DC, and Rutgers is going to bring you New York City.
But I'm like a step beyond you. I'm not even talking about TV markets, which may be a factor. I'm talking about some czar of college football, the guy that Mark Emmert could never be when he was president of the NCAA, says, I'm picking 36, 38 teams. And I'm not factoring what you Big Ten says is important, what you SEC says is important. I'm going with the best teams. And to me,
that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen? What would happen?
That'll happen.
If there was a super conference, the SEC and the Big Ten would facilitate it. There wouldn't be some third party czar that comes in and just picks teams out of there because one, the SEC and Big Ten would never allow that, largely because they would say, well, you still got to be with us in basketball. This only works in football. Think about it, Dave. Basketball can't do this. Basketball, you need the backing of the conference. And in every other sport, too. It's only football where you could pull this off. And those leagues wouldn't let you do that with relative to the other sports. The SEC and the Big Ten would have to come to some sort of an agreement. Look, I think eventually it's just going to be like the AL and the NL, quite honestly. I think the SEC and the Big Ten will be the AL and the NL, and they're going to value teams differently, and they're not going to kick out anybody that was in their league. They've taken pride in the fact that they don't expel teams. That they make a point that's for lesser conferences. And
can you imagine Vanderbilt just getting beaten like a dog in a mega conference, which is what they would? Derek says Vanderbilt should get a coach that runs triple option, wishbone, flex T, whatever it takes to win. 8 teams hate playing you. I think there's a lot of truth. No, it's a really good idea. And I will say this too. I think to some extent that's what Josh Heupel's offense is. It's a more modern version of that, but I don't think teams like getting ready for Josh Heupel's offense as opposed to the regular offenses they may face week in and week out. Oh yeah, I'd rather get everything prepared for a pro style offense than Josh Heupel's offense any day.
I agree. Now, it's still not as bad as preparing for a triple option offense, because those cut blocks that they still allow. I mean, this is why Georgia Tech under Paul Johnson could just go 8-4, 9-3 every year with mediocre talent all over the place, because they had the cut blocks in the triple option and it was hard to prepare for. Preparing for Josh Heupel's offense is actually, here's where that's the best parallel. It's why Bruce Pearl had early success in the SEC. When Bruce Pearl came to the SEC, 40 minutes of hell had gone away. Nolan Richardson had been fired for 5 or 6 years at that point. The SEC had become more of a half-court defensive-oriented conference. And here comes Bruce Pearl saying, I'm going to run the flex. I'm going to press 40 minutes. Nobody was ready for that. And that's where Josh Heupel's offense is. But a lot of teams are running tempo now. So I don't know if it's the tempo. It's just it's not even, you could play Josh Heupel's offense every week. And I just don't think you'd be able to scheme for it the way you want to, because it's about the personnel and what he's running. But I think Vanderbilt won't be the only school like this. You'll have Vanderbilt, you have Northwestern, you'll have Purdue. Okay. You brought up Rutgers in Maryland. I mean, these schools are, and look, I don't think the SEC or Big Ten are done expanding. I'm telling you guys this right now. 2036, 2037, whatever it is. Yes, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia, and UNC are going to sink into irrelevancy. But Virginia and UNC, there is going to be a bidding war for those two schools. Both the SEC and the Big Ten want them.
Yeah, Derek brings up a good point. Vandy Hurt's strength of schedule and the permanent season model. I agree with that. I mean, I'm okay with a 9-3 team making a college football playoff if there's a mega conference where every week you're seeing matchups of elite teams. I don't want to see it halfway in between, which I'm afraid is the path that we're going on. Your thoughts on that, Caleb? As I remind you, Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. So I want to stay what it is, or I want it to go all the way to a mega conference where you literally pick the 32, 36, 38, whatever it is, best teams just based off their merit, history, and what they're doing over the past 20 years. That's how I would choose them. And I could go down the list pretty easily and get to 32 teams, no doubt.
You wouldn't get 30. It would be about 65, 70. That's how they would go. They'd go 65, 70, which is that. So just the top half of college football right now. Who those 65, 70 would be, I don't know. But look, Vanderbilt is safe on that. They're safer than Group of 5 schools. I know how you would do it. That's not how it's going to happen. It's not going to be like the smaller NFL. It's going to be, again, 65, 70 schools. Because the goal for this, and this is a big deal, Dave, they still want the sport to be somewhat national. If you were the college football czar, you would want every corner of the country. You'd want college football intrigued by every corner of the country. So you're going to have to, at that point, take like a Colorado or a Utah or somebody like that just to have a presence of college football in the Mountain West. And
yeah, but I'm okay with Colorado, Oregon, and Washington being my representation from the Northwest. And then the Southwest United States would be UCLA, USC. And then obviously we fill in the Big 10 and SEC teams to fill it out regionally. I just don't care what happens in the Northeast is the bottom line. I mean, I don't think college football is ever going to be huge there. I think that's going to be NFL territory forever and ever and ever. And I don't think Rutgers is ever going to compete with the Giants. So I wouldn't go out of my way to make it TV friendly for them. I wouldn't care.
They're trying. I mean, you don't forget this, though. If college football programs in the Northeast had, whatever you think about him as a human, I always qualify that, but if they had listened to Joe Paterno in the 70s and actually agreed to form a Northeast conference in football, college football would have been big in the Northeast. The problem was they decided to ice out Penn State and form a basketball conference that became known as the Big East, which folded because they didn't all want to get beat up by Penn State. But if they actually made an effort, you remember this, Dave, people really cared about Syracuse football for a long time. Mm-hmm. And Boston College had a pretty good run too in the 80s. So you are right. College football is effectively dead in the Northeast because of how much they care about pro sports right now. But if you do like a 65, 70 team field with a 12-team playoff and one of those teams gets a chance of getting in, I mean, this is your philosophy, right? In a 12-team playoff, you think eventually in the age of NIL, if teams are getting in, there'll start to be an increased interest in the sport and more effort to make teams competitive across the country.
I like what Travis says, 4 quadrants, 4 conferences. I could put that together pretty easily, and I might.
Big Ten has what's the Big Ten quadrant? They're now in LA and New York. I mean, this is hilarious that Washington is going to have to fly to. But
you realize I'm talking about a world there is no Big Ten and SEC anymore.
I know, but I'm saying the commissioners won't let that happen. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti need jobs. Why would they willingly give up the jobs they have?
Well, I mean, they would
And
still have jobs, and it would still be called the SEC, but you would just reposition and kick some teams out.
they need jobs, though. I mean, look.
They
You
need
see this
jobs.
all the
Yeah, Greg
No.
Saint wakes up every day. How am I going to pay my mortgage?
No, you see this all the time. Like, you see this all the time. And just like, I mean, I'm not going to, you see this all the time in just the world of life. Like, for instance, the government will create something sometimes to address a need, and then it never goes away because the people in that area, that's so many jobs, so they can't get rid of it, even though it doesn't provide any service anymore. That's conferences in college football. There's no point for conferences anymore if you really think about it. But they have them because the conference administrators and leaders have become the biggest power players, and they don't want to lose their jobs. It's a jobs program. The same way the war on drugs was a jobs program in the 90s. Okay, it was a fake job for a bunch of people to go tell you how bad drugs are, and like that's the problem. So I don't think they're going anywhere for that reason, because they have so much power and they don't want to lose their jobs. There's no reason for conferences, if you ask me, in football anymore. Now, volleyball, yes, it is stupid that Washington is going to have to fly from Seattle to New Jersey for a Tuesday night volleyball game. That's the dumbest thing in the world. But football, there's no reason.
For good reason, Caleb is not a big Hugh Freeze fan. And interesting note that we want to get to about him. I think a lot of people are rooting against Hugh Freeze, and I can't blame them. I mean, maybe he is completely over his women thing, but I'll believe it when I see it. Want to get into a Hugh Freeze note brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Just follow them on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN. It's on Facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN. So, Hugh Freeze, thoughts?
Yeah, so I wanted to get back to SEC signing classes from earlier. Auburn had the number 7 ranked class, but Hugh Freeze said the most shamelessly hypocritical thing I have ever heard a coach say. The only thing that comes close to what I'm about to tell you was when Urban Meyer went on Bill O'Reilly's show and said it would be hard for him to have a player of Jameis Winston's character and accept that on his football team. Urban Meyer actually said that one time, but Hugh Freeze is second to Urban Meyer now in shameless hypocrites for what he said on signing day yesterday. He was asked about players flipping and things like that, and he said, quote, I kid you not, quote, "There are some schools in this conference that believe in last night efforts." Well, Hugh Freeze knows something about last night efforts. But then on top of that, he said there were some late night pushes. We won. There were some late night pushes. We won, held on, won one, lost one. People in this conference are good at what they do. And then last quote, "I don't always like what is done," says the snake who tricked Ole Miss recruits to staying in his recruiting class when he knew they were about to go on probation, because at the time, the transfer portal, they couldn't transfer. Says the liar who told Ole Miss recruits, "We're not in trouble. Don't worry. We're not going to go on probation." This was all under the previous staff under Houston Nutt, and then dropped a bunch of fake reports trying to throw Houston Nutt under the bus for stuff he was doing that got Ole Miss kids locked into a school that was going on probation. That's what this guy just said. Okay? Dave, how shamelessly hypocritical is that?
Little Penix Energy says Hugh Freeze knows about late night pushes as well. That's pretty good line. I'll give you that.
He's just the shamelessness. I can't get over that. He's an awful person as it is, and he just says that he has a problem with the way things are done and implies that he recruits with integrity.
But nothing says integrity like Hugh Freeze. I'll give you that. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys, play to win. Banks and Jones. Why Banks and Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks and Jones, when it comes to personal injury and criminal defense, it should be your attorney of choice, and they represent the show. I want to tell you, though, you need to get on board with Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Give that a try. Use the promo code HAT to receive some free swag on your cider order. Available most anywhere in the U.S., but if you use that promo code HAT, you'll get some free swag. It's tncidercompany.com, right below, tncidercompany.com. And I think we need a Hooker cider. And we need a Hooker cider eventually. All right, A&M, your thoughts on A&M?
Yeah, so other A&M signing class. This is actually big for Tennessee because Texas A&M failed to sign 5-star defensive lineman Dominic McKinley. and he's actually visiting. So Cameron Coleman flipped to Auburn, by the way, yesterday. Hugh Freeze didn't have any problem with that. Flipped from A&M to Auburn, so he didn't mind for that late night push. But
sometimes you got to flip in the middle of those late night pushes. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so Dominic McKinley, a 5-star defensive lineman, did not sign with A&M. I don't think this is a sign of A&M imploding to have a first-year head coach. You're going to have some flips and losses. But I do think this specific player is a good sign for Tennessee because he's visiting Tennessee on January the 20th. So, guys, Tennessee, we talked about Jordan Seaton earlier. I don't think he's not going to Tennessee. Sorry, I told you guys Boo Carter was staying. I'm telling you guys right now, Jordan Seaton is going to flip from Colorado, but he's not flipping to Tennessee. That's not happening. But I will tell you that
I don't know. This feels like legitimately. I'm not saying he is or isn't. This feels like legitimately he's not sure. It feels like Jansen Jackson, who waited till the day after signing day before murdering someone. But it feels like that, Caleb. It feels like the kid's really unsure. So I don't know that he knows, and if he doesn't know, then I don't know.
I think he's genuine about the fact, though, that he wants to play for a black head coach, which is fine. That I'm not judging that at all, but that would be where Mike Loxley comes into play. But Dominic McKinley is visiting the Tennessee-Alabama game in basketball January the 20th. It is true he is looking at Texas, but this could be a good pickup for Tennessee. Somebody you might rather have than Walter Nolan, honestly. So watch out for Dominic McKinley. Tennessee could get him. If they got Seaton and McKinley, Dave, what does that do to their class? All of a sudden, it's a top 8 class.
Okay, so everybody on the message board right now, you know I love you, and you know you've built this into something special. But I'm gonna call you out on one thing. Saying you don't want Walter Nolan because he might not come to Tennessee, or saying you don't want Jordan Seaton because he might not come, it's just not true. If we had breaking news of Seaton or Nolan coming to Tennessee, each and every one of you. You would absolutely love it. You would absolutely love it.
That's how signing day works, Dave. If a player didn't commit to my school, I never wanted him. But if he committed to my school, you all wanted him. I saw that when we did the Boo Carter lap the other day. Every Colorado fan who kept saying he was going to flip was going to be like, well, we didn't really need Boo. We got this guy or this guy.
He's too small. He's too small. He's not that good. He switched high schools. Don't want him.
Happen.
Yeah.
By the way, for the record,
if Tennessee got Nolan and Seaton, which I'm not saying they're going to, and they may be head cases. You might be exactly right. But, I mean, they'd be a top 10 class all of a sudden.
Exactly. Oh, my. This is as old as I remember.
All fan for life is saying, I'm telling you, I don't want Seaton. I think he's locker room trouble. Okay, I will believe you. But I think 99% of the people that say that are just saying it because he's not coming to Tennessee.
Oh, by the way, here's the proof of that. How many Vol fans, Dave, were when they thought Boo Carter was flipping, were like, well, we don't want Boo Carter. He's obviously some trouble. And how many of them were then excited that they kept Boo Carter? It was a 180. And
I thought Boo Carter was a head case at one point. I had somebody close to his recruitment tell me that it was he might not take to college coaching really well. And this was recently. But everything I've heard since then, this was last week. So we heard from Jacob Warren. If you haven't listened to the Vol Report, he's like, that Boo guy stands out. So Smoky Mountain Red, I think, kind of sums it up. And this is National Signing Day in general. Yes, I would take him, but he still seems like an issue with how he is handling his recruitment. That says a lot about a player, in my opinion. I totally agree. I was the first to find Jalen Ramsey. Have I told you this? When I was working for ESPN. And when I interviewed Jalen Ramsey, he said, you want to interview me? ESPN wants to interview me? He got into the recruiting process, and he was out of Brentwood, and we all know that he turned into one of the best cornerbacks of the past 10 years or so. And he got in the recruiting process, got caught up in that, got the big head, and then suddenly he was difficult to deal with. But would you turn him down?
No. So a question to you on this. We're blaming the kids for how they handle recruitment. What about self-reflection for how much, and I'm a hypocrite. I say this, I'm still going to cover it and talk about it because it's such a big deal. What about self-reflection on how interested we as adults are in life decisions 16 and 17-year-olds make? How are you going to blame the 16 and 17-year-old and not yourself for being so obsessed with them? Isn't that the real?
I think it's important, but I think that at 16 or 17, you're old enough and you should be mature enough not to play it as a game. I'd like to write the recruiting, how to get your kid recruited the right way for dummies. And that is, whether it's a 247 or whether it is rivals or whatever, you deal with one person. You don't take a million different calls from a million different people. You shouldn't have to, but you're just legit and honest with people. I think that's the way you do it. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks and Jones. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Tomorrow's a football Friday with Fred, so we look forward to that. Fred's feeling better. And for Caleb Calhoun,